Your physical game and your mental game is very important. But what doesn't get talked about a lot of times is the drilling and the layout portion of this game. And that is very crucial to your success in this sport of bowling. So let's go and get into it. Alright, so welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about drilling and layouts. And as you can see, I got a lot of points here. We're going to cover a lot of territory in this video. So if you would like to take notes, that would be advised. But if you don't, that's perfectly fine. You can screenshot the video so that way you can maybe put it in your notes or maybe write it down somewhere. But I'm just going to start off with a few points here and break it down as well as I can, because a lot of times whenever you watch videos, if they're talking about the mass bias or the PSA, they won't explain it very well. So hopefully how I explain it in this video will help you better understand at home how to apply this to whenever you are drilling or laying out your bowling ball, so that way you can get better over time. So let's go and cover a few points here. So the first point is whenever you're drilling your bowling ball or laying the bowling ball out, you have to know your PAP, which is the positive axis point. And it's 90 degrees from the first oil ring. So whenever you're measuring out your bowling ball, if you're having a pro shop guy do it for you, basically what he'll do is he'll have you throw a ball down a lane, and how your ball travels and how the oil goes across that bowling ball, he will measure from the first oil ring of your track. And so he'll measure 90 degrees from that first oil ring in order to get your PAP. And then the next thing that you'd need to know, it would be your center of gravity, which is known as the CG. It is the balance point of a bowling ball when it is sitting still. So a lot of times people will think that the CG is the mass bias, whereas the mass bias is the preferred spin axis. It's for when the balance point is not sitting still, whereas the CG is the balance point of when it is sitting still. So more or less, the PSA or the mass bias is when the ball rotates, whereas this is the center of gravity of when the ball is just sitting still. I've already covered of when the first oil ring on the oil track on the ball is used to help locate the PAP. I've already covered that. So let's go and move on. And so the next thing you need to know is where the pin is on the ball. So a lot of times, if I can get one of my bowling balls, then I'll show you here. So I feel like this is a good example here of a ball. And if you don't know where the pin is always marked with a circle. And that basically means that it's the top of where the bowling ball is. So if your ball has a core, it'll be the top of the core and it'll be marked. And that's how your pro shop operator, whoever is drilling your bowling ball, will know where to place the fingers. In a dual angle layout system, that second angle is measured from your PAP to your pin. And so they'll measure that. And so depending on what kind of a layout you want will depend on what measurement that they use. But first and foremost, you got to figure out what your PAP is. If you don't know what your PAP is, well then you can't drill a bowling ball. And so that's when you have to get measured. They have to know your PAP and figure out where your pin is on that bowling ball. So then after that, then they can measure it after they get your measurements of your hand. Like I just said, you have to get measurements of your hand, and then after that they will look to find what your hand span is and the pitch that you'll need when they're drilling the bowling ball, and then they'll figure out your grip sizes. So those are the first few points here, and I will move on to the next couple points here. Alright, so I'll cover these bottom two first. So as we covered in the previous slide, The PSA is how the ball hooks or moves, whereas the pin is when the ball hooks and moves. So in today's game, the CG is more or less, it's all based on the balance, where a lot of, from what I understand, a lot of the pro shop operators who drill bowling balls, they don't really worry too much about the CG as much when drilling bowling balls. But uh, two things that you for sure need to know is your PSA and your pin. And so, but if you want to know the differences, that is the difference. The PSA is how the ball hooks, whereas the pin is when the ball hooks. And so keep that in your mind, put that in your notes, that way that you can better remember that whenever you're um, thinking about drilling a bowling ball or laying it out. And so, but a couple more things that you will need to know is know your ball speed and know if you're a tweener, stroker, or a cranker. So this is very important, because if you don't know your ball speed, and if you don't know what type of bowler you are, then you can't really lay out the bowling ball correctly. Because if you're a high speed player and you're laying it out for a low speed player, well, then you're going to get a totally different reaction. Most likely the ball will not move very much because you're laying it out opposite of the way that you should be. So know what type of bowler you are, know how hard you throw it, and really a good pro shop operator who does this for a living, they will measure everything for you, so you don't really have to do too much. But if you want to be more hands-on, then these are the things that you will need to know in order to lay out your ball correctly and to know how to drill your bowling ball, know how deep to make your finger holes or your thumb holes, so that way that you can get it right the first time instead of having to adjust it later. All right, so a couple layout systems out there. There is 3 that I know of. If anybody out there knows more that people still use today, leave that down in the comments below. But these are the 3 that are out there that I know of that have been around for a while. The newest one is the Storm 2-handed layout system, what they call it, the 2LS. A lot of the 2-handers now do use this system. They've used it now for a few years, so but it is still technically newer. The 2 most popular out there is still the Storm Vector layout system and the Dual Angle layout system. And the Dual Angle layout system is the one that I use a lot, just simply because it is simple and it's easy to use for one-handers and 2-handers. And so there really is no difference. You just basically you have 3 angles with the Dual Angle layout system, and it's very simple. You don't have to be a mathematician to really figure out how to use this system, and I will cover how to use this system in the next video if you would like to watch that. But I'm going to break down into detail exactly what each angle means and how you can better use that whenever you're laying out your bowling ball. Basically, these are the 3 systems that are out there. You can choose whichever one that you would like. Like I say, I use a Dual Angle, but if you're 2-handed and you like the Storm 2-handed layout system better, try it out, see if it works for you. If not, you can always do the Dual Angle or the Storm Vector layout system. It's up to you. It's up to you on what layout system works best for you. And you may have to make some minor adjustments here and there in order to get the correct layout for that type of bowling ball that you are using. But more or less, just ask around, see what people use in your area, and then if you want to make changes, you can always go to a different system. So there's really not much to it, but like I say, there's a lot of facts in this video that you will need to know in order to figure out how to better drill your bowling ball and how to better lay out your bowling ball. But like I say, in the next video, I will cover the Dual Angle layout system because it's the one that I use. So that way you can better understand that system. But with that, that's the end of this video. And if you have any questions, just let me know. You can always send me an email or leave some comments down below, and I will see you in the next video.